In Chinese folklore, mountains are the backbones of sleeping dragons. But millions of years ago, the dragons were real. Central Asia spawned the most terrifying dinosaurs ever to rule the Earth. Asia, 160 million years ago. The climate is hot and unstable. Clouds are twice as high, storms twice as powerful. Below, a primordial forest teems with the earliest forms of life. All around, exotic creatures vie for space and food. Meanwhile, to the south, dark clouds gather on the horizon. Some creatures sense danger and begin to move away. But close to the forest, an enormous plant eater stops by a stream. Nearby, a killer stalks its prey. It lunges like lightning. Before the attack is over, a violent storm erupts, unleashing a torrent of water. Attempts at escape are futile. Overwhelmed by the raging flood, the dinosaurs are swept away. Over time, their mangled bodies will be buried in silt and preserved for the next 160 million years. Today, their grave lies in China, the land of the dragon. 1,000 miles southwest of Beijing, nestled in the lush hills of Sichuan province, lies the city of Zigong. Here, in 1979, the first museum in Asia was built to showcase dinosaurs. Since then, it's become a popular tourist attraction for the Chinese. The museum sits directly above the site where the dinosaurs died. Below a spectacular viewing gallery lie the remains of over 100 dinosaurs, frozen in time. Paleontologist Dale Russell of North Carolina State University is one of the few Westerners to witness the carnage.
I'm walking into a colossal site of dinosaur bones. This is one of the greatest accumulation of dinosaur bones that humankind has ever found. And they're all preserved here, more or less intact, as their bones were scattered across the surface of sand.
There are over 8,000 bones here. In all, 6 entirely new species, unique to China, were entombed in this dinosaur graveyard.
It's easy to visualize if you want to try. We're surrounded by a tremendous amount of putrefying flesh, which is only partly exposed from the sand. The odor is something that is beyond description and beyond endurance. What this place is, it's a fourth dimensional hell.
This is the pelvis of a predator. Close by is the thigh bone of its prey. It belonged to one of the long-necked, long-tailed plant eaters that roamed the earth 160 million years ago. Called sauropods, these giants had legs the width of tree trunks and brains the size of golf balls. The largest land animals that ever lived, they were also one of the most successful. The biggest sauropod found in Zigong was the length of a basketball court and weighed as much as 7 elephants. It's named Omisaurus, the lofty brow lizard, because of its neck. At 30 feet, it's the longest one ever found on a sauropod of its time. In the past, paleontologists assumed its neck was held upright, like a giraffe. Now it's known that would be a physical impossibility.
The neck itself was built not so much to go up, as it's shown here, but more to reach out in front and sideways.
The neck was reinforced by long, slender bones on each side. If Omisaurus tried to lift its head up, these bones would snap. Instead, it was kept low to the ground.
We assume that this long neck behaved much as a large boom on a crane would function, so that the animal could graze a wide swath as its body would move quite slowly and become a very efficient large-scale lawnmower.
Moving slowly, constantly feeding, Omisaurus behaved like other sauropods. But the sauropods here are the earliest yet discovered. They represent the best remains in the world from the mid-Jurassic. The Jurassic was the second of 3 geological time periods known as the Age of Dinosaurs. It began with the Triassic, 245 million years ago. The Jurassic was followed by the Cretaceous, which saw the end of the dinosaur era 65 million years ago. China's mid-Jurassic sauropods were not only ancient, they were unique. Omisaurus had a feature Dale Russell almost overlooked.
You know, when I first saw this dinosaur, I thought, what a fine but ordinary specimen of sauropod. And then I began to look at it in detail.
Omisaurus had a club at the end of its tail, the size of a football, that may have been a lethal weapon.
Well, as you can see, this medieval mace is not unlike an Omisaurus tail club. And if I were a desperate Omisaurus being attacked by a carnivorous dinosaur, I guess I would use it something like this.
Even the largest predator was no match for this giant swinging his fearsome club. The sauropods of China were different because the world they lived in was different. 245 million years ago, China didn't exist. It was part of one huge continent called Pangaea that the dinosaurs could roam freely. Through time, Pangaea broke up and Central Asia drifted apart. Cut loose from the rest of the world, the creatures that lived here evolved in their own special way. For 70 million years, the dinosaurs of Central Asia lived in splendid isolation. But it wasn't to last. As the Jurassic gave way to the Cretaceous, the Earth began to change. The climate warmed and sea levels rose, creating a kind of greenhouse that would feed evolution. The first flowering plants blossomed. And in Asia, a strange new creature appeared. About the size of a pig, it scurried through the underbrush on its way to becoming one of the world's best-known dinosaurs. In 1922, a pioneering expedition to Mongolia, funded by the American Museum of Natural History, was led by the original Indiana Jones, Roy Chapman Andrews. Traveling with a caravan of camels and automobiles, Andrews was searching for evidence of primitive man. But he found something much older.
Roy Chapman Andrews went to Asia to find the source of human origins. Instead, what he found was the best fossil field of dinosaurs that we will ever know.
In Andrew's day, the dinosaurs of North America were already famous. With its massive frill and 3 large horns, Triceratops was the star of the late Cretaceous. But its ancestors were a mystery. No one knew where it came from. Then, at the site called the Flaming Cliffs, Roy Chapman Andrews stumbled on a clue. The skull of a horned dinosaur that looks like a Triceratops, but more primitive. Named Protoceratops, it was the perfect candidate for an ancestor, except for one problem. It lived at the same time as Triceratops, only many thousands of miles away in Inner Mongolia. For 4,000 miles, an ancient trade route winds its way across the steppes. Called the Silk Road, it's linked China to the west since Roman times. More recently, it's been a hunting ground for paleontologists. In 1993, a Sino-Japanese expedition followed a small part of the Silk Road on a hunt for fossils. They found 4 meat-eaters and 7 plant-eaters, a whole community of dinosaurs. But the prize of the trip was a brand new dinosaur that would solve the mystery surrounding Triceratops. Dong Jiming, China's leading paleontologist, made the discovery, and what he'd found was truly remarkable. An almost entire skeleton intact, with a perfect skull. In life, it was a plant-eater that ran on its hind legs and had a peculiar head. Dong named it Archaeoceratops, meaning ancient horned face. 4 feet long, it was the size and build of a small deer. For Dong Jiming, it was part of a bigger story. Archaeoceratops had the makings of a frill and a hook-shaped snout, just like Protoceratops, but it was smaller and more primitive. And crucially, it was found in much older rocks.
When I found Archaeoceratops, I was very excited because this proved that the ancestors of these ceratops were in Asia in the early Cretaceous period.
Archaeoceratops was 30 million years older than Triceratops, just the right age to be its ancestor. But if they are related, how did a Mongolian dinosaur wind up in Montana? $120 million years ago, titanic convulsions deep within the Earth erupt in a curtain of fire, tearing continents apart. The Pacific Ocean gradually shrinks, drawing Asia and North America closer together. In time, they collide above the Arctic Circle, forming a land bridge called the Bering Straits, a link that still exists to this day. In the Cretaceous, it was a dinosaur footbridge.
You have this migration route, as it was, clearly outlined through the Bering region that really underscores the greatest migration route of the dinosaur era, in which these dinosaurs very occasionally went up almost to the pole and found themselves isolated on the other side, evolving into new species.
If Archaeoceratops hadn't made the long journey to North America, there would be no Triceratops. But it wasn't the only dinosaur on the move. Central Asia would also spawn the most terrifying dinosaur ever known.